Here.
Hello, this is Admiral Seabass, and we are coming at you with our mission debrief for Operation Clancy, which was held this past weekend in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And that was at Twisted Lords Con, and all of us were there. Everyone who played there is here. A board gaming bro is tied up at work. He may join late or he may not join, but otherwise, everyone else is here, and we're going to do a mission debrief for you. I know about a week ago we kind of did a preview, but a lot of these guys were shy to really reveal their secret plans. So hopefully we can get a little more transparency tonight and feel a little more like the USA and a little less like behind the Iron Curtain tonight. So anyway, let's get going. We got some pictures here to show you as we talk. And so the first is, this is the map, after we completed setup. And so you see there, it's the full scenario 3 game, and all 7 dashboards there set up, all the tech charts. We have battle boards at both ends just to speed play. And we used the turn order, the alternate turn order in the rule book that basically allows both ends of the board to play at the same time. So guys, I think it's fair to say that when we had this set up, the reaction was pretty positive, was it not?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Was first time seeing the new art. Very nice.
It's unique. Never put anything out like this before.
It's very unique, and we wanted to go for the darker style, the echoing war games, and it's kind of the data control and dot matrix style of the 80s, and I think we've succeeded in that. We're going to tweak it. This is not the final map. This is a beta map. All those plaids are not final, but they're, from my point of view, most of the plaids are done and need to be handed off, and we have a few tweaks to make the map. We got a lot of good map feedback from you all while we were playing. I've got some notes I need to go over with Doug at HBG. So yeah.
The dashboards are great.
Yeah, they are. I changed them. They're going to be in the faction colors now instead of that sort of standard computerish green, the DOS green, I guess. But yeah, I've already made that change. I think we'll keep the tech chart and the battle boards in that other color, but no, I think it went, setup went well, and everybody was kind of wowed about it. And yeah, so let's get right into it. So I think we started setting up, midday on Friday, and then we had the thing set up. I think we started playing around 1:30 or 2. And here was the this is what everybody also kind of oohed and ah at, was the Warsaw Pact orange, which I just painted those over the last couple of weeks. So so there's the setup in Central Europe, and you can see Warsaw Pact starts with quite a bit of stuff. NATO actually starts with almost as many units, but they're so spread out, across the board. In fact, if you look at our strategy notes, one of the things we say is that the NATO player, really needs to consolidate as much as they can before war breaks out. Otherwise, they could be kind of picked off piecemeal. And so anyway, yeah, that was probably, people seem to love the map, but then also that Warsaw Pact color really popped for people. So.
Well, and I think just seeing all in one, that wall of units. I mean, in a way, it's like the first time you play as NATO and you see that, you just kind of take a gulp and you're just like, how the heck am I going to deal with this?
Yeah, how is that making you feel, Ozark?
I think I just had a moment of deja vu while Brian was talking. It does, in the initial setup you see there, it does look like it's going to be an uphill climb all the way from turn 1 on. The thing that kept NATO in the game against that wall was battlefield nukes. I mean, if it wasn't for that, I think it would have been over in Western Europe pretty quick.
Design success. So, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But so on what I would call the western part of the board, we were playing with my pieces, but on the eastern part of the board, we were playing with Flak 88's pieces, and I wanted to show off some of these here. So, mine are the more standard, color, but Flak 88 has gone above and beyond. So, Tyler, you want to talk about these?
Yeah, I sure can. I'm not actually sure if I'm on the screen.
You are.
Okay, perfect. So within doing realism painting and trying to differentiate factions, I kind of had to decide, how am I going to do 3 different teams that all have green tanks, right? So I had to figure out, so I kind of decided early on I was going to do the Soviet in kind of a Red Dawn era white camo, like you see in the bottom corner there. That is a green tank with white camo, pretty easy to do. And I did US, all the US stuff in just standard green. And then China, I have a different green with big bright red decals and some big bright red stuff on there. And all the aircraft are pretty realistic. You see some decals there on the MiG-31 and the backfire there. So yeah, they pop out pretty nice.
Yeah, they just looked amazing. So nice job there. And so it was nice to have one kind of into the board be one more realistic and the other one kind of more standard. Well, then we got into the game, and the very first thing we did was the Warsaw Pact random event, and I picked that one, and it was Toyota War. So this is where Libya and Chad go to war, which is loosely based on a series of conflicts in the mid 80s between those two, which Libya did not fare well in historically. But Captain G, this was your chance to start causing mischief with the Toyota War.
It was, and of the scenarios, this was one that when I read through them, I wasn't really looking forward to. I wanted something else, but this turned out to be quite a lot of fun. Not only the NATO nuance and the negotiation with China, which I'll let Ozark and China talk about as far as getting aid to Chad, but it put us in conflict early, so we could roll some battle dice, at turn 1, and eventually, obviously Warsaw Pact prevailed, and we'll get to those slides later. But it didn't last long. The East German Africa Corps was not very successful, but it was a lot of fun, and it opened up some opportunities to take other territories in Africa that hadn't even thought about prior to the scenarios.
Ozark, you were on the defense here with Chad, which is the light blue there. I painted them light blue to show that they're NATO minors, but you did try to do some things with Chad, right?
I tried. Of course, it's the way the game is designed. Honestly, I would rather have spent the money in Western Europe instead of Africa. But I tried to put up a fight. The first thing I saw immediately was, if I was going to get anybody in there at all, I was going to have to get China to let me use their port over there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who it is. Sudan, somebody.
Mm-hmm. Sudan, or
otherwise I wasn't going to be able to get any meaningful units in there. So we had a little negotiation by proxy, and U.S. Pacific Command footed the bill, but I got what I wanted.
Yeah, so my instructions, I played China for the first 2 turns for Brian, who was on his way from a work trip, and his instructions were, sure, let him use the Chinese ports in Africa to deliver the military aid to Chad, but Pacific Command has to give China a mechanized infantry every turn that you do that. So I noticed that we did it once, Ozark, and you never asked again.
Yep.
Well, I guess I misunderstood the terms of the contract. I took it to mean this was a one-time only deal.
Oh, I would have taken multiple turns of mechs.
As I said, I obviously misunderstood.
Well, that's okay, but it would have cost Pacific Command a mech every turn we let you use those ports. So,
well, I'm sure Josh would have been thrilled about that.
And on the second turn, I think you sent a fighter, so you didn't need to go through. And then the third turn, they didn't exist. So it's not like he missed opportunities.
Well, that's true. But I went with the fighter on the second round because, like I said, I misunderstood. I thought he was only going to let me use the port just the one time, and that was it.
We have here is a failure to communicate. Let's go to the Pacific. The random event for the Far East Command. Well, let me back up. I think this was the first of 3 unexpected events, I would say, which I kind of liked. And then Tyler, you're playing Soviet Far East Command, and the event was Red Crescent. So you want to talk about that? And Josh, I don't know if you have anything to share about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Red Crescent is in Indonesia, and starting on Far East Command's first turn, you can pay up to $3, get an additional free die to start rolling diplomacy for Indonesia. And the event calls out for 3 successful diplomacy successes to get all of Indonesia. And I successfully failed at diplomacy. And Josh got a whopping, how much was it? $23 to spend there?
I think that's right.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
Yes. And yeah, ultimately couldn't pull this one off, and Josh had a lot of money to spend there. Those of you who play Global War 36 from HEBG will recognize this mechanic from Turkey at War. In fact, Ozark recognized it immediately as we were playing it. And basically both sides are putting in money, and the winner takes all and spends all that money on units in Indonesia. So we'll talk about the fallout from that, no pun intended, later. But then, Dan, let's bring you in. The last and I would say most surprising event was Red Caribbean. So talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when Nicaragua went PRF, and then El Salvador went PRF, and then Cuba went PRF, like literally the stars aligned, and then all of a sudden Red Caribbean was the event. When that happens, it kind of is like, all right, what as the Soviets, what could I do to the US to create as much chaos as I could? Well, I mean, you can send 3 total units. Not only can you air redeploy, you can also airlift Soviet units. And I was like, you know what territory could I utilize to really, hammer the US or kind of slow them down as much as I could? Cuba is the answer, honestly, because you've got a major air base there. Not only can you military aid 2 air units, but I also sent a AAA. I think I had like 15 total units before Cade decided to invade it, which was enough, to kind of, and he didn't end up taking it, which, the following turn is able to get a couple more or actually 1 more unit in there. So, but no, you got to take advantage of the random event. You just have to. I mean, you've got to slow the U.S. down, or else they're just going to pummel you if you don't. I mean, you got to take advantage of it for sure.
Is it fair to say, Dan, that you were a little bit skeptical of this one, but then you became a believer in it later on?
Yeah, I was like a little nervous, a little skeptical about it, because I was like, dang, I was like, what am I going to do? And I was like, you know what? As I read further and understood, the chart of the Red Caribbean, how it works, I was like, this could really slow down the U.S. So I was like, you know what? Let's send 3 units a turn. Let's just try to screw the U.S. over as much as possible. And I mean, it worked. It really did. I mean, I think I took full advantage of the event.
Yeah,
for sure.
You did too, yeah. And the other thing that this does, I mean, this is the closest thing we have to Red Dawn in the game.
Yeah.
And it starts a diplomacy contest over Mexico too, which you were able to win also.
Yeah, it's, U.S. has to pick a target, and, they have enough units, starting units, to invade 1 Caribbean or, Central American territory. And I had PRF units all over the board. I mean, he could have chose Nicaragua, which I had a lot of units in, but if he would have chose that, then Cuba would just been a powerhouse. So that was a really good invasion call by Cade to do that, to invade on that turn. Because it just would have been a nightmare for the U.S.
Or turn 4. 4. I think it was 4.
I believe it was 4. Yes, 4. Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
They got the DEFCON 3 on turn 4, and then he hit Cuba right away.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he had to. He had no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good call, and I mean, even though it slowed the U.S. down, and eventually, as the Soviets, you have to be okay with losing the units there and losing territory, because the U.S. just obviously can build so close to those territories, and the Soviets can only get so much. So you have to be okay with losing all that, and then trying your best to slow them down as much as possible to help preventing from helping NATO and things like that. So, I think as the Red Caribbean event went on, I mean, I feel like I did take full advantage of it. What I've done a few things differently, a couple things, but I think I sent enough units to Cuba pretty efficiently, I believe.
You stacked it up. Well, so the random events kind of played out over the first 4 or 5 turns. And then, I want to skip ahead to when full war broke out. And, here's a picture of kind of what happened on the first turn after Captain G's Warsaw Pact declared war on NATO. You can see there, Warsaw Pact managed to take all 3 West German territories, Northern Germany, Bavaria, and Rhineland. So Captain G, walk us through the war planning and the preparation and how that played out. And Ozark, obviously, you probably have a point of view also.
So the plan was to take at least 2 NATO countries, to get that battle star for the free upgrade. So Denmark was the first choice, and I had enough aviation units that I could, from Poland even, send helicopters and attack helicopters and air cav into Denmark. And then the first 4-turn build was pretty much mechs, a little bit of stuff for Libya, and next gen MBTs, because next gen and mechs can blitz. And with the advice of our Soviet military advisors embedded in Warsaw Pact, helping us with the blitzing mechanism, I definitely wanted to take Bavaria and Northern Germany and Denmark, and then look at, is there an opportunity to press on and take Rhineland, or is it not favorable? The pros and cons to that is, obviously, you take Rhineland, you secure all of Germany, and you do a big blow to NATO, but your best units are now ahead of your meat shield. Those older gen tanks and artillery and other things that could not blitz were behind you, and they're not going to be around to take those battlefield nuke hits that Ozark was so foaming at the mouth to throw at me.
And Ozark, how many battlefield nuclear release dice did you get after this initial attack?
Oh, I want to say 4. I don't remember for sure, but I want to say 4.
I think it was 11.
It was 11. Yeah.
11. Well, I said I don't remember.
Yeah, it was 11.
It was 11.
And so Ozark, you were able to retake Rhineland a couple of times. Yeah, I think you even retook Denmark on the first turn after that.
I retook Denmark once, and then he took it back, and we traded Rhineland back and forth. Oh, geez, 2 or 3 times at least, probably. When he took all of Germany, I'm sitting there looking at the board thinking, well, Jesus, what the hell do I do now? He's pushed me back across the Rhine. This doesn't happen in any of the books.
Good.
So it really, like I said before, the best I could hope for at that point was to counter his numerical advantage with the battlefield nukes while I tried to assemble a counteroffensive force. That was what I tried to do. Yeah. We'll see later on in the discussion how that turned out.
Well said. So you did roll 11 battlefield nuke release dice. You only needed an 11 or higher on a single dice. I'm sure you probably pretty easily got that. Then all your artillery.
I think I rolled an 11 and a 12. There were 2 dice in here, I think.
So then all your artillery rolled triple dice, and all your attack bombers rolled triple dice too. And you took it pretty hard in the counterattack, Captain.
Yeah, all my brand new next gen main battle tanks and mechs were pretty much obliterated, but they served their purpose. Yeah, because they constitute the next wave and throw some meat shields. I think we ended up having 5 or 6 battles of the Rhine by the end of the game. It was some ping pong.
You also got that bonus, right, for holding all 3 West German territories. I think you get +5. Yes. Bonus, and you got the other special bonus too. I can't remember what it's called, where you get a couple of free light infantry.
Yes, the first time, the initial time, I get a couple, and I think this photo shows them in Romania and East Germany. Yep. And I think at this stage of the war, I was still getting quite a lot of Africa money coming in.
Yeah,
for the U.S. and NATO conspired to take that away from me.
Well, let's move on to the Pacific, or over to the Pacific. So, Tyler, you didn't win Indonesia, but you had some options and you took them.
Yeah. So losing diplomacy, you get special operation or theater nuke release on PAC. With my battle plan that I had kind of conjured up, I went ahead and went with nuclear release. I didn't go full theater. I took advantage of stepping down a click and doing nuclear anti-ship missiles instead. And went ahead and struck Josh's fleet when it was very vulnerable. He had no missile defense. So
there it is.
I took 4 hits on that fleet right away. So that basically set the U.S. fleet back 2-3 turns.
Yeah. And you took Tokyo. And
Tokyo War 1, yep. And then I took the additional Fukuoka and Sapporo on the additional, or the subsequent turns. So
very clever move here, because you took Tokyo and you simultaneously put Sapporo and Fukuoka out of supply, meaning they couldn't combat move and you could mop them up later.
Correct. And he couldn't sea lift reinforcements in either.
Nice.
The classic Flak 88 move is out of supply.
Josh, any thoughts or comments on the opening here?
No, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I think I was overly concerned about Alaska, which I think long term I might have been able to work out well, but I think Tyler kept me on the defensive the rest of the game.
Yeah, and probably pretty realistic to worry about Alaska, because under the scenario rules, or the random event rules, he could have tried to hit it.
Yeah, especially if you're down with the special operations.
Yeah. If you haven't picked up a theme, the random events in this game are designed to help the Warsaw Pact alliance. So early on, the good guys are on their heels and on their defensive. Brian, let's talk about China and what you were doing early on and what you were able to accomplish in the early part of the game.
So I was really very happy that in Indonesia was the event, and not Bamboo Curtain, which would have caused greater friction immediately with Tyler. I think having all of that diplomatic money spent down there, Tyler's choice to go to war in Japan first, and pin down Josh's fleet up north, it opened a narrow window for me. Now, originally, my war plan had been to kick North and South Vietnam in the teeth on the first turn, I hit DEFCON 3. And I decided against that for two reasons. One is that Tyler had left air units in South Vietnam that made it just marginal enough an attack to hit both North and South Vietnam on the same turn. And second, where his fleet was positioned, I thought there was a very strong likelihood he would swoop down and try to take out my little missile boats, which play a vital role in the Taiwan invasion. So I decided to pull the trigger on a Taiwan invasion. I had built up to have a flexible force that would go in either direction, toward Vietnam or toward Taiwan. I had 4 airborne. They all went into Taiwan. I had 2 Marines, the Taiwan invasion force, and a very, very large force of early gen fighters. And I got pretty lucky. I only took 1 casualty at sea, which was a missile boat. And then I think I lost 1 Marine in the battle for Taiwan, and that was it. So I came away from this in really good shape. And that window of opportunity that Tyler created for me by continuing to go after the rest of Japan, which, I mean, having put them out of supply and they have IPP, it made perfect sense for Tyler to keep on going after them. So I pressed my advantage further from this point. But as you see on the map, as you see on the map, it's this is my immediate, having redeployed most of my fighters back. You can see that very large stack of, like, I don't know, 9 early gens sitting in Guangxi. And yeah. So that's what I was thinking and how I'd approach this.
Yeah. Okay. So Dan, you were also going to war. Of course, a lot was still happening in the Caribbean, but talk about what you were doing. You seem to focus a lot on what I call the Nordics, so Scandinavia, pretty early in the game. So talk about your plan up here and what you were thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as the Soviets, there's a lot of good income, a lot of good bonus money in Scandinavia, excuse me. And I just wanted to take full advantage of it, and not to mention also help Captain G's flank NATO as well, and just try to help them out there to where NATO's just not concentrating on Warsaw Pact. Now they got to deal with the Soviets in the north and my 2 big fleets that I have. So I think by taking it out, being done with it, I mean, it creates a lot of more opportunities elsewhere, because NATO's more than likely not going to be able to take hardly any of this back, because I had so much that was going into Sweden and the Nordics territories. So honestly, it was just try to take it full force. And obviously Finland came up short, got diced there, but I mean, that's all right. Ended up, taking both territories, the following turns. But otherwise, I had a really nice force there to help help Captain G out if anything went sour. So
Ozark, do I remember this correctly? Didn't the Finland light infantry hit twice? Or once?
I think maybe it did.
Yeah,
it was at least twice.
Yeah, Dan, you probably remember.
Yeah, I remember. He hit twice. So, but no,
Dan,
like
it
I
makes
said,
a lot of sense to deal with Sweden first, doesn't it?
It's $2, and plus you've got a minor army base, you've got a minor air base there. You can deploy an airborne out of there if you've got advanced airborne doctrine. You've got 2 airborne that you can utilize. Nordland's a really good territory because it's got an air base to launch 2 airborne off of there. I mean, to have bases like that there is really crucial and really nice to have in case you want to hit England at some point, which obviously we'll talk about that later in the slides. But you definitely have to hit that Swedish fleet there, which I would say that my naval units sucked this game and trying to get any hits whatsoever. They were pretty awful, but no, it's a good strategy just to knock Sweden out and the Nordic territories and Finland to get that income. I mean, it's 3 just IPP just from territorial alone, plus you get bonuses for Svealand and Akershus and things like that. And in case also, if NATO would have taken Denmark back, I had the resources to take Denmark as well if I wanted to.
I think the other thing I want our viewers to understand too is, I mean, everything Dan said is correct. I think the other reason you want to hit Sweden is because if you start taking Denmark and Nordland and Akershus, Sweden can align to NATO, and then you're dealing with a big stack of NATO units in your rear, and you don't want to do that. And that kind of models what everybody thought in the 80s, which was that Sweden was kind of a silent partner of NATO and would have helped NATO in some sense in the war.
Yep. So that, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you just got to take them out or else they go NATO. So, and then that was my strategy in the North, was to obviously hit England later. But in Marmara, once the event was Red Caribbean, I was like, you know what? I've got these units down here. Where could I utilize them best? Why don't we just do a full assault on Marmara and just take it, and
we'll slide for that later, I think.
Okay, cool. Well, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. What's going on here?
So eventually, after I took Taiwan and was making various kinds of chaos further south, Tyler got it in his mind to finish off my navy and attacked with a very formidable fleet. A battle cruiser, a cruiser, destroyer, couple frigates. My stack of 5 missile boats and 1 frigate. There's no way these guys should have survived.
You had like 12 pips.
Yeah, there's no way this stack should have survived.
And here I was marched down with my big navy because your little pipsqueak missile patrol boat stack was in my way, blocking me from Indonesia. So I thought I'd come down and just make quick work of that, and it didn't happen. I got diced hardcore.
No, this was well, everyone was laughing. I rolled on the first round of defense, so you missed, I think, all but 1 hit.
Yep.
You missed all your dice but 1. So I was going to lose a frigate then because they don't have target select. My frigate missed, but then I rolled the 5 missile boats and got 2 1s.
And they have surface target select 1.
So I sank the Kirov on the first round of this,
which is almost the same amount of pips as all your entire fleet.
Yes. But then the crazy thing happens is we go a second round of combat, and I got 2 more hits.
Oh.
1 a target select and 1 not. So that the cruiser went down along with one of his support ships. At which point Tyler called it a day.
Wow. And China earned a naval battle star.
And China earned a naval battle star. I never got to use it because I didn't build any more fleet, and I never got long-range missiles to start firing off ASMs from it. But
well, this was definitely one of the most fun moments. And Tyler, you're such a good sport here.
He really was. Because of course, I fully expect the entire fleet should have gone down in 1 round.
Yeah, that was a fun moment for sure.
That was fun. I wasn't even mad at the dice. It was so wild.
So, Captain, we've skipped some time here. Libya did conquer Chad. That aligned Chad and Libya to the Warsaw Pact. And then you mentioned the the counter assault began in Africa, and you were earning quite a bit of income from Africa by design. But eventually you found yourself in trouble down here.
I did. After Chad, you can see at the bottom, it went into Nigeria because that took oil money away from NATO and the US. So I kind of poked the sleeping bear. Next thing I know, NATO is firing nukes at Libya, and the US is blockading my ports and basically put the entire Warsaw Pact army in Africa out of supply. And that ended all combat operations for us. We could still move non-combat. I think I was able to restore supply one turn, and then the US blockaded the ports and I think eventually destroyed them. So that pretty much ended it. And you could see the US was poured into Tunisia, the largest army they've had there since 1943, and then swept through Africa.
Yeah. So it was a nice income shot in the arm, but it's always going to be short-lived. You know, I shouldn't say always, you know, but typically will be short-lived. And, you know, so you had to spend that money well that you were earning here. Yeah, Cade, I have to say, made some nice moves there to put you out of supply, blockading the ports, damaging your army base. So I think he did well there. Let's shift back to the Pacific. Brian, you then pressed your advantage after Taiwan.
Yeah.
And,
I initially did a land and amphibious invasion into North Vietnam. I figured I didn't have quite enough stuff in position on my turn 6 to take all of Vietnam that turn. So initially I went for the North. Crushed it pretty handily, didn't lose too much. And again, because that Marine survived, I'd also been able to reposition my airborne. I was then able to launch, I think, 3 airborne, the Marine, and some ground troops, along with those field artillery you see there at the bottom of the screen, into South Vietnam. Took all that out, killed one of Tyler's attack bombers and a fighter down there. Those were the things that made it hurt to do this. And yeah, it was this was a lot of bonus income. You know, you get 2 IPP for holding both of Vietnam's, but another 2 each for North and South as China. So this really was a big turning point for me in terms of the extra bonus income and my ability to keep on slapping down forces to keep parity with FEC back up north.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say this was one of the turning points of the game. And Tyler, did you see this coming?
No, I didn't see it coming, and because of the fleet losses up north and Josh blocking me around around Japan, I couldn't get down there to do anything about it. So yeah, that caught me off guard.
I think another turning point of the game is right here, Captain G, with Warsaw Pact and Austria.
So the battle, you can see there's US units in Rhineland and NATO units. So the back and forth in Central Europe, I wasn't going anywhere. And there were just wave after wave of battlefield nukes and attack bombers just wiping out my forces. So I took a left turn through Austria because by this stage, NATO had pulled all of their forces around. And I thought, well, this is great. I'll just sweep through and empty Italy, capture another NATO country, and take away income from Ozark and add it to my coffers. But after I cleared Italy, the next thing I know, the green machine is just suddenly popped up in Lazio because of the US's ability to just move massive amounts of forces around the world quickly. But it worked out, but not as easily as I had thought. But this did give us a second front against NATO.
Well, Ozark, this stretched you right further. I mean, you were having enough trouble, you know, hanging on in Central Europe, and this just opened another front against you and split your focus, didn't it?
Yeah, this was a really good move by Captain G, and it was the beginning of the end, because I was down the money from Germany, so I was working with reduced income, and what I did have, I had split between trying to hold France and stopping an end run through the mountains of northern Italy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely jammed me up.
And Dan, look at everything you have managed to move in the top left of the screen there. The attack helos, the air cav. I mean, you had managed to get quite a bit of stuff in here to support Warsaw Pact and Captain G.
Correct. Yep. That was the definitely the ultimate goal, to help Captain G out as much as I could with those. But yeah, no, absolutely. Soviets got to help little brother out as much as you can.
And you can see the SS4s there in West Czechoslovakia and down in Romania. So theater-wide nukes had been fired at this point. Ozark, you had gotten theater release, I think, after a combination of Warsaw Pact taking Benelux, and then also Warsaw Pact using battlefield nukes in NATO land zones. Is that right?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So then the theater missiles were on the board. They were making 2D6 nuclear facility strikes, and I think Captain G, that was causing you to have to spend money to pay that off, but then you also got to shoot at NATO as well.
It did, and the Romania, I think it was Romania theater nuke was helpful because I could strike Marmara, but once that fell to the Soviets, I didn't have any targets in range until I opened up the airspace through Austria, and I could start going around Yugoslavia. So I don't want to upset by shooting nukes over them and hitting Rome.
Yep. Okay, here's another little fun thing, and sorry for the quality of the picture, but Tyler and Josh, what in the world's going on here?
Tyler's being pretty tricky, is what I think happened.
Yeah. So Josh successfully secured theater release, and for the U.S. that gives him the B-1 bomber, which has a couple nasty little surprises for you. And Josh had deployed them to Guam, and I thought it would be a clever little move to move a heavy aircraft cruiser with a couple fighters not pictured into that sea zone. And it does two things. It puts Guam out of supply, and B, it puts the entire air zone in an aerial blockade. So I effectively locked up a strategic bomber, a B-1, an attack bomber, and a fighter, keeping them from even combat moving against that blockading force because they were all out of supply.
So yeah, they couldn't combat move because they're out of supply, and they couldn't even non-combat because you were air blockading them. So
I locked them up, which was awesome for me.
Where's the U.S. Navy, Josh?
I think it's a couple of zones away. I think in the next turn or two, we had a pretty decisive naval battle, which I got lucky and won, which I think, otherwise I would have been pretty screwed at that point. But then I still think it took me another turn or two to blow up with some anti-ship missiles, the carrier.
Yeah. So that was a fun little moment in the game. This was fun for Dan, but not so fun for Ozark, I think. So Dan, a lot of those helicopters we saw in one of the earlier pictures, some of them ended up here, and so you kind of took advantage of the situation and went for England, didn't you?
That is correct. Yes, absolutely. It's a lot of income for the Soviets. And I know with the targeting rules and things like that, which we've hashed out and all that now. I mean, that's what, $10 right there for all three territories. I mean, that's a lot of money. I was collecting 68, 70 IPP a turn. And I mean, that goes a long way for sure. And funny enough, if, I put a theater missile in there to basically target Paris, to target basically any French land zone that was there is, it's in range of that theater missile. So I utilized it as much as I could. And I mean, not to mention you can build there too as well with I know it gets downgraded to a minor army base, but I mean, it allows you, so many options that you can operate from.
Yeah. I think
For
what we
sure.
realized after this was that, because the situation happens so infrequently, I think what we realized after is that when the Soviets take southern England, then NATO can basically just launch all their strategic nukes at pretty much anything in Warsaw Pact, including their cities, which could potentially reduce Warsaw Pact victory points permanently. So I think in the future we wouldn't see the Soviets do this unless NATO was literally close to collapse and surrender. I certainly think the Scotland and Midlands might be in play occasionally, but yeah, we probably won't see this happen again.
No, absolutely not. As when we talk through it, it's probably not going to happen again. So, however, I did get do what?
Fun to see though, and this isn't the last unique thing we'll see either.
Well, not to mention, when I took Scotland, the amphibious assault ship went Soviet.
Yeah, well, we'll see let's not spoil it, but we'll see the impact of that later.
Yeah, I won't spoil it. I'm just saying it did go Soviet. So
Yep.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, I utilized that once I knew that Captain G had a foothold for the rest of the game in Central Europe. I was like, you know what could I do with these? And so that's why I went for Southern England first. Just took it out. Yeah.
What's going on here, Brian?
Well, so one of my stretch goals in this game was to secure the 3 potential VP China has in building up its African friends and satellites. So when Dan launched his war against South Africa from Angola, Zaire automatically aligned to me. And I had kind of patiently been building up Zaire, sending them military aid and dropping a unit there, whatever I could spare on any given turn. So what I had was pretty well ready to conquer some adjacent territories. And over the course of a couple turns, I took Zimbabwe and Mozambique. And so I got my 3 victory points there. And and I had some fun doing it because this is just this is kind of one of these places where China can cause a lot of headaches for the Soviets. I think less so for the United States, but certainly for the Soviets, they can cause headaches.
100%. One thing I realized in looking at this picture, one of the very final design changes we made in this game was to give Warsaw Pact some early gen fighters. And I didn't realize until I looked at this picture that when we did that, that meant it was no longer a China only special unit, and now China can give it as military aid, which I absolutely love.
Yep.
So you sent them 2 early gen fighters.
I can't remember whether I bought 2 or whether I bought 1 and then once I had Air Force modernization done, airlifted one over there.
Yeah, that's pretty what happened.
One or the other. Yeah.
Okay, Dan, we talked about the other funny thing, but so you captured an amphibious assault ship in England, and then you had a little fun.
Yeah, I took a Canadian territory over there. So
put your
I know it. I know.
Yeah.
I know it ultimately led to Cade having counter value. Counter value. Another option I thought in my head too with this was, if the game was a lot closer towards the end, that bad boy would have been sent to South America, to Central America, to try to take back a territory over there. That's what I thought too as well. But this was fun. I like this. This was great.
Yeah, this was fun. It did give basically the United States full nuclear release against the Soviets.
Yeah.
You can see up there the B-1 came on, one of the attack bombers, the theater missile. Yeah. I note Kate in the bottom right there had built an advanced air superiority fighter, which I love as well. That's the X-29 sculpt, very iconic 80s experimental aircraft. So yeah, Cade's warming up the nukes here after the Soviets invade Canada. And then here's Cade trying to drop a 46 nuclear gravity bomb on Moscow, but Soviet air defense was too good, wasn't it, Dan?
Yeah, I ended up shooting those down for sure. Definitely got lucky there, while every other my AMD dice missed.
Yeah.
So yeah,
so you blew up your silos. I think a couple of your silos, and I think you hit something else in Leningrad. I can't remember what.
Yeah, I got totally 360 windmill slam dunk there.
I love you, Dan. And then here, Captain G and Ozark. Here's board state at near the end of the game. So kind of talk through the later stages of the war here in Europe.
So after pushing through Austria, the U.S. reinforced, and then we baited them with basically one unit in northern Italy and left everything else in Austria so they could pull them out of Lazio, split NATO and U.S.
Mm-hmm.
He came north, and then we countered, and once Rome fell, there was nothing left down there. And then the Soviets, and this was key for us, military aid sent an airborne unit to us. And you can see in the bottom, I was able to use that from Greece to take Crete because I need at least 2/3 of a country. So since there's only two pieces, I had to have both pieces. So we secured Greece, we secured Italy. And at that point, I think this was pretty much end game, as you said.
Because even though Warsaw Pact Alliance has done very well here, as you can see, France is still standing. Spain, Portugal are still standing, but there's not a lot of NATO left. But I think a big part of the reason why is because Captain G, your big brother Dan really made a incredible effort to support you in this, right? Like, I mean, he's got England, he's got the Nordics, he's got Marmara, Greece, and he just gave you a lot of support this game, didn't he?
Absolutely, because if he hadn't taken Turkey and wiped out the Incirlik Air Base and captured Marmara, then my move through Austria, NATO and the U.S. could have done the same thing out of Turkey up into Bulgaria, Romania, and opened a second on me. Yeah. So, the right and left flank were secure, and all I had to do was push forward. With France, though, because of, we just talked about the counter value with Canada, if I had pushed into France, then that would have released counter value for NATO. So I didn't want to do that until I was ready to sweep in and capture those two missile sites, which would have been the next objective.
Yeah.
But we hit end game.
I think it's possible to do too well sometimes, and I think the Warsaw Pact Alliance has done so well here that the nuclear consequences are going to be severe. And I think at this point we thought that the U.S. was just going to, basically wipe out the Soviet cities, and even though you were collecting a ton of victory points from this board state, that was going to be diminished by the U.S. counter value attacks in the Soviet Union. Brian and Tyler, meanwhile, over in the Pacific, China is making their late game push here to take advantage of the nukes flying in the western part of the map to kind of make your final push, Brian. So this was a big battle in Manchuria, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it might have been ill-advised, but I had waited a long time to roll a lot of dice, and I had secured battlefield nuclear release several turns before this, had built up my forces, and pulled ahead of Tyler in my number of nuclear capable artillery. And I did the math, and it was pretty clear that I could smash his forces if I got a little lucky. But at the very least, would probably not come off too badly if I only did a round or two, even, and pulled back. And but I had pretty average luck. I had a huge stack of early gen MBTs that absorbed most of the hits Tyler got on me. He wasn't sure whether I was going to continue, so he took a lot of artillery as casualties.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
another turning
yeah,
point, probably. I mean, it would have been a turning point if the game was going to continue, but I think, Brian, you did this because you kind of thought the game was going to end soon, and you wanted to try to recapture some Manchurian territory.
Yeah. Didn't work out that way, but.
And here's kind of the board in state over here in China and Soviet Far East Command. So Tyler, you want to talk through this?
Absolutely. So I think I attacked or declared on China turn 5. Does that sound right, Brian?
No,
turn
you
5.
Waited to 6.
No, I waited till 6.
Mm-hmm.
So Brian beat out northern and central Manchuria, and I played the classic Flak 88 flank into Ulaanbaatar, that's Mongolia, and swept down into southern Manchuria on war turn 1 for China, and I sat in Manchuria for the rest of the game, which is a ton of victory points for Far East Command. So Brian and I basically sat on that border and built up most of the game until that battle. And looking late game, it was looking like China was pulling significantly ahead in victory points. So I had to pull some units out of that stack to try to sneak away some territory from China to get some VPs back for Soviets.
So board state, it's like Far East Command and China were both doing amazing, because Far East Command was holding Japan and all of Manchuria. You were still collecting a lot of income. You had a lot of victory points, Tyler. But China was also doing well because they owned Taiwan, pretty much all of Southeast Asia, and it completed a lot of their technology and force modernization goals. I mean, look, China's got an air superiority fighter in there. They can't buy those at the start of the game.
I had 2 of them.
There's
one in that Beijing stack.
Yeah, 2 attack bombers. And so I think China was pretty well positioned to push back if the game had extended. And again, I think China did end up winning the game. So congrats, Brian. Warsaw Pact Alliance finished 2nd. NATO Alliance finished 3rd. And but not for a lack of effort on everyone's part. I just think everyone thought the strategic nuclear exchange between the U.S. and Soviets was, in addition to China being able to hold off the Soviet Far East Command and likely finish a few more victory point conditions, meant that we could pack it up late on Saturday night after 11 turns. And look at this crew of people here at the end of the game. And guys, I'll just tell you, like, this is one of the best times I've had, and I didn't even play the game, but it was a lot of fun. So I open it up for any closing thoughts or comments.
I mean, I think what this just proved for me, I mean, we've been at this together for 2.5 years now. This was the first game I felt like everything, every major concept, every major balance issue landed about where we wanted it. Like, we had the seesaw in Europe that we hadn't achieved in years of trying. We had all these interesting strategies in every part of the world being undertaken, and I think just about everything felt right. I mean, we're making a couple tweaks in light of this, but it just felt like a huge success, and it was a lot of fun. Like,
yeah, and I'll add on to that, Brian. I think this picture does show a great milestone, how everyone has participated in this and how far we've come with this game and just the uniqueness of it. And just, we're like a family. We really are. and I'm blessed to, be a part of this. And this is probably the best year and a half that I've had, doing this with a great group of guys that I know and have got to know personally. So, no, I honestly, everyone's a really good friend, great friends of mine. And I couldn't have done it with anybody else, honestly.
Well said, Dan. I'll piggyback off that as well. We've been playing since September, so it's been pretty steady gameplay since then. So it's been an honor to play with everyone. It's been a joy talking strategy with whomever's not on my adversary list. But congrats to Brian for winning. You definitely pulled out some secret little techniques there. That was fun. So well done, Brian. This was a great game. Captain G and Ozark, you did great over there for first-time players. A lot of stuff that we've never seen, which is super cool. And it's not easy to play NATO or Warsaw Pact from experience. They're very challenging. So I think you guys did really well, and it looked like you guys had a lot of fun. This game is super fun. It's definitely 3-dimensional with the nukes involved, and like other global games, this is it's quick, it's fun, and it's got a lot of 80s flavor. So thanks for playing, everyone. I had a blast.
Any closing thoughts from our new guys, I guess, Captain G and Ozark?
I'll give final words to my esteemed opponent at NATO, and I'll just say it was a lot of fun. I think everyone said how much it was enjoyable. There are a lot of layers to this. You can do a lot of things, but do you want to? What are the consequences? And it was helpful to have, the Rodina sitting right next to me saying, yeah, you could take it if you want to. He's going to nuke you. You're having trouble with his battlefield nukes. You don't want his strategic nukes, making sure I didn't set off any tripwires. But I just look forward to the next one, next game, next opportunity, because I know it's going to get better.
Damn it, Anthony, you stole my thunder, because that's exactly what I was sitting here thinking about. This game is different from the other games that HBG has produced in that every single thing you do in this game, everything, has a consequence that can bite your ass in a hurry if you don't pay attention to what you're doing. You make one, 36, you can go on the offensive and go from one side of the world to the other if you've got the forces to do it. You try that here, you go 2 steps and somebody's blowing you out of the water because you've crossed a line you shouldn't have. Mm-hmm. So those mechanics make this a very, very rich, very deep game. Mm. This isn't something that you can, phone in. You've got to be on point every minute that you're playing, or somebody's going to make you pay for it.
Well said. All right, guys. Really appreciate the time tonight, and I'm finishing the game up. We're done testing. Testing's over, which is awesome and a relief. But I have to finalize. We had a few small tweaks coming out of this, making those changes, handing stuff off to Doug at HPG, and then he'll be producing the game. I know a few of you took beta maps home, and you're going to start playing. I've been setting up. I'm going to do some content here really soon, explaining concepts in the game to the viewers, and some of you will be playing. So thanks everybody for coming on tonight, and I wish you well as you continue to get into this game. So take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. It was fun playing with you all.
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks.
Good night.
All right.